Day 539 of the Trump administration, a kind of split-screen day of competing headlines as the president continued his overseas trip. With that coming meeting with Vladimir Putin now just days away, Peter Strzok, the FBI agent who has come to personify Trump's fight and fury over this Russia investigation, he was on the Hill and sworn in for what became withering partisan questioning. And there were fireworks. More on that just ahead. The president is spending the night in England. Before leaving the NATO summit in Brussels, he was taking credit for the increases in allied military spending.
Amazing two-day period. I told people that I'd be very unhappy if they didn't up their commitments very substantially, because the United States has been paying a tremendous amount, probably 90% of the cost of NATO. And now people are going to start, and countries are going to start upping their commitments. So I let them know yesterday, actually. I was surprised that you didn't pick it up. It took till today. But yesterday, I let them know that I was extremely unhappy with what was happening, and they have substantially upped their commitment. Yeah. And now we're very happy and have a very, very powerful, very, very strong NATO, much stronger than it was 2 days ago.
That's how that went, but NBC News reports it was not clear that the president had actually obtained any new concessions from the allies present. The leaders of France and Italy told the AP there was no agreement for additional spending. President Trump had just arrived in the United Kingdom when there was new controversy. It has to do with what he told a British newspaper about Prime Minister Theresa May and Britain's volatile debate over how to withdraw from the European Union, Brexit. He tells The Sun that Prime Minister May ignored his advice on how to do it. More on that ahead as well. And there is new reporting tonight from the New York Times involving classified documents about an informant the FBI used in 2016 to look into any possible links between the Trump campaign and Russia. Times says the White House has ordered that more lawmakers be allowed to see them. But the biggest headline in the Russia investigation coming today from Capitol Hill, specifically this controversy over the FBI informant and the agency's initial handling of the investigation. FBI agent Peter Strzok, who helped open that inquiry, testified for over 9 hours today into tonight in front of the combined House Judiciary and Oversight Committees about a series of anti-Trump text messages to another FBI employee, Lisa Page, sent during the 2016 campaign. Again and again, Strzok was asked to respond to accusations from Republican House members who insisted those texts were clear evidence that his investigation was blatantly biased against the president.
Let me be clear, unequivocally and under oath, not once in my 26 years of defending our nation did my personal opinions impact any official action I took. This is true for the Clinton email investigation, for the investigation into Russian interference, and for every other investigation I've worked on. I'm also proud of our work on the Russian interference investigation. This investigation is not politically motivated. It is not a witch hunt. It is not a hoax.
Some of the most contentious questioning came from South Carolina Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy, one of the more vocal supporters of bringing the Mueller investigation to a close.
You're 8 days into your Russian collusion with the Trump campaign investigation, and you got another text from your colleague, Lisa Page. Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? And you replied, no. No, he's not. We'll stop it. By the time you promised to stop him from becoming president on August the 8th, how many interviews had you conducted?
Mr. Gowdy, so two answers to that. One, with regard to how many interviews had or had not been conducted, I've been directed by counsel for the FBI not to answer that question. I don't recall writing that text.
Are you denying writing the text?
What I can tell you is that text in no way suggested that I or the FBI would take any action to influence the candidacy of
Agent Strzok, that is a fantastic answer to a question nobody asked.
Yeah.
At another point, California Republican Congressman Darrell Issa asked Strzok to read his own text messages out loud.
And I'm going to just go to a date and then ask you to read your own words. March 4th, 2016.
You want me to read this?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. OMG, he's an idiot.
July 21st, 2016.
Trump is a disaster. I have no idea how destabilizing his presidency would be.
And during another controversial exchange, which may have been the day's low point, Texas Republican Congressman Louis Gohmert referred to Strzok's affair with Lisa Page, the FBI agent with whom Strzok had exchanged the text messages.
I've talked to FBI agents around the country. You've embarrassed them. You've embarrassed yourself. And I can't help but wonder when I see you looking there with a little smirk, how many times did you look so innocent into your wife's eye and lie to her about Lisa?
Mr. Chairman, this is outrageous.
Credibility of a witness
Shame
is
on
always
you.
The fact that you would question whether or not that was the sort of look I would engage with in a family member who I have acknowledged hurting goes more to a discussion about your character and what you stand for.
With that, let's bring in our leadoff panel on a Thursday night. Jeremy Bash is back with us, former chief of staff at CIA and the Pentagon. He happens to be former chief counsel to the House Intelligence Committee. Jill Wine-Banks, attorney and former assistant Watergate special counsel. And Frank Figliuzzi, former FBI assistant director for counterintelligence, who has worked for Robert Mueller, among others. We're happy to say that all three are MSNBC analysts. Frank, because of your history with the Bureau and because this is at heart an FBI saga, an FBI story, I would like to begin with you. What happened today? Did you take away any tangibles? And who or what won, if anything?
Brian, there was only one clear winner today in a spectacle of a hearing, and that really was Vladimir Putin. He's sitting back, pleased with his intelligence services. It's sowing discord and disarray. That's their objective, and they couldn't, even in their wildest strategy sessions, have dreamed that this would turn up into an FBI counterintelligence official being berated and denigrated by the Congress. This is the clear winner today. What we saw today was partisan politics at its very worst. And what we saw was an FBI agent trying to defend his personal political opinions against a tirade of political partisans putting their own political and self-interest above those of the national interests.
Jeremy, do you find any hyperbole in what Frank Figliuzzi just said?
No, I think investigations have to be beyond reproach. Integrity has to be the pillar of an investigation. And that's why I think even though you could argue that some of the text messages were innocuous, it was appropriate for Bob Mueller to remove Strzok from the investigation more than a year ago. And the bottom line is that this whole hearing was epic nonsense, because the real issue is that the Mueller investigation has resulted in 5 convictions, in 20 indictments, with individuals either in prison or facing prison who were in senior levels of the Trump campaign. And the central issues here, which is what return on investment has the Russian Federation gotten for not only meddling in the election, which is the phrase everybody uses, but actually favoring Donald Trump. What return on investment have they gotten? We're seeing it now play out across the continent of Europe this week. And so this hearing, in many ways, Brian, was merely a distraction from the bigger national security issue facing our country, which should be approached on a bipartisan, nonpartisan basis.
So, Jill Wine-Banks, as a veteran of the Hill, as a former Watergate prosecutor, what stood out to you today?
I think what stood out to me the most was how much this sounded like the McCarthy hearings. The interrogation of Peter Strzok was really unbelievable. It was proof that this investigation of the Russian interference is not a hoax and not a witch hunt, but that this was both a combination of a circus, a tragedy, a comedy. It is hard to take seriously how he was attacked today with no purpose.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.